Be prepared, chosen one, for before the awakening begins, there is a sleep so deep that most never rise from it, a silent hypnosis disguised as living. In this level, the soul is silent and the mind is enslaved. The person isn't truly alive. They're performing a role written by unseen hands. Society writes the script, fear directs the play, and the ego delivers the lines. Every thought they think was planted. Every dream they chase was sold to them. They move like actors on a stage built by illusion, mistaking applause for purpose and comfort for peace. Their hearts have forgotten the sound of their own truth. They confuse repetition for meaning, obedience for identity, and survival for life. Chosen one, if you are reading these words, it means your spirit is stirring. Something within you is no longer satisfied with the noise. The old patterns no longer fit. The routines you once called normal now taste like ashes in your mouth. That's how the Great Awakening begins, not with lightning, but with discomfort. A restlessness you can't explain, a quiet rebellion whispering from the depths of your being, there is more. And if your soul has led you here, then hear this call clearly. Subscribe to stay connected to this frequency, and comment 999 as your manifestation code, a sacred number of completion, rebirth, and divine alignment. By doing this, you declare to the universe that your old chapter has ended and your awakening has begun. You see, most people live and die in this sleepwalking state. They follow the crowd, obey the rules, avoid discomfort, and call it wisdom. They worship schedules, deadlines, and trends as if these were holy. Their hearts beat, but not with purpose. Their eyes open, but not to truth. They scroll endlessly, comparing lives that aren't even real, feeding an emptiness that cannot be filled with likes or labels. They confuse convenience with happiness. They measure worth in numbers, followers, salary, possessions, never realizing that the more they chase validation, the more they drift from their essence. This is the domain of ego, where the mask becomes the face. Here, identity is built upon borrowed names, job titles, fashion, filters, trends. Silence feels dangerous, for silence reveals truth, and truth threatens the false self. So they drown it with noise, endless chatter, entertainment, distraction. But underneath it all, a faint whisper remains, a pulse in the dark, the soul saying, "Wake up." Yet the sleepwalker does not know they are asleep. That is what makes this stage so dangerous. The illusion feels like home. The cage feels like safety. They are surrounded by comfort, but starved of meaning. The body moves, but the light within flickers dimly, barely alive. But every illusion, no matter how strong, eventually cracks. The routine starts to feel suffocating. The laughter rings hollow. The goals once chased with fire now dissolve into fog. A quiet shadow begins to follow them. In moments of joy, in the stillness before sleep, whispering questions they cannot silence. Why am I doing this? Is this all there is? And slowly, the veil begins to thin. They start to see through the mirage. The empty smiles, the shallow conversations, the pain hidden behind perfection. They begin to notice that most are pretending, that they too have been pretending. Their job, their friendships, even their faith, all the structures that once defined them, begin to tremble under the weight of truth. They can't explain it to anyone, because on the outside, everything looks fine. But inside, something ancient is awakening. This, chosen one, is the first fracture in the illusion. the beginning of the unraveling. And once that crack appears, there is no going back. The light will find its way in, whether you are ready or not. You may resist it, but the truth waits patiently. You may deny it, but the soul does not forget its own name. For those who feel this stirring, who hear this silent call, you are not broken. You are being summoned. The dream is ending, and the dawn of your awakening is near. The question now is not whether you are ready, it's whether you are willing. Willing to lose the lie to find the truth, willing to step away from the noise to hear your own heartbeat again. Be still, chosen one. This is the hour when illusion begins to tremble. The lights that once blinded you start to flicker. The comfort that once calmed you now feels like confinement. What once gave you meaning now drains you. It begins quietly, an ache beneath the surface, a dissonance between the life you live and the life your soul remembers. You may not know what's wrong, but you feel it. You may smile, laugh, and go through the motions, but inside, something sacred is shifting. This is not depression. It's not failure. It's the first breath of your awakening, the soul stirring after a long sleep. The routines that used to make you feel safe now feel suffocating. The laughter of the crowd begins to sound hollow, the conversations too shallow, the ambitions too small. You begin to notice how much of your existence has been built on survival instead of purpose. And that realization, that first crack in the facade, changes everything. You start asking silent questions. Why am I here? What is all this for? Is this all there is? You see through the performances, the smiles that hide pain, the ambitions that mask emptiness, the patterns people repeat just to feel alive. And in that clarity, you recognize yourself among them. You see the masks you've worn, the lies you've told yourself, the ways you've dimmed your own light to fit in. The life that once looked perfect on the outside now feels like a prison dressed in luxury. And though you can't explain it, you feel it tightening, the walls of illusion pressing in, demanding that you choose truth or comfort. This is the tension between your old self and your emerging soul. The ego resists, whispering that you're crazy for wanting more, that you should be grateful, that everything's fine. But something deep within you knows better. You begin to sense energy differently. You feel the weight of words, the frequency of spaces, the hidden motives in others' eyes. You realize how much of what you believed was never yours to begin with. Beliefs borrowed from parents, teachers, religion, the media. You see how you were programmed to obey rather than awaken. And yet this clarity doesn't bring peace. It brings friction. The familiar starts collapsing and you can't stop it. The relationships that once felt warm start to feel heavy. The goals you once chased feel meaningless. Even the prayers you used to recite now ring empty because they were spoken from a self that no longer exists. You are being stripped down to the essence, every false layer peeling away under the heat of truth. The nights grow restless. You feel torn between two realities, the one you've outgrown and the one not yet formed. This is the sacred in-between, the valley between the known and the divine unknown. It feels like being pulled apart, yet it is through this tearing that you are reborn. You may feel alone, but you are not. Every soul destined for awakening must walk through this fire. Every chosen one must face the collapse before they can carry the light. The world around you may still look the same, but your perception has changed forever. You begin to notice signs, little synchronicities that seem too perfect to be coincidence. Repeating numbers, familiar songs at strange moments, people who appear out of nowhere and speak words that feel like prophecy. The universe is responding to your awakening. It's not chaos, It's communication. This is the moment when you realize that what's falling apart is not your life. It's the illusion of control. The structure you built from fear is collapsing so that truth can rise in its place. It hurts, but it's holy. It's the shattering required for expansion. Remember, chosen one, you are not being punished, you are being purified. What feels like loss is simply shedding. What feels like darkness is the dawn approaching. Let it fall, let it all unravel. The people who drift away, the habits that dissolve, the identities that no longer fit, they were never meant to survive your evolution. You are not who you were, and you never will be again. The crack has appeared, and through it, light is pouring in. The veil is thinning, the truth is emerging. Be prepared, chosen one. This is where everything changes. The illusion you once called reality begins to dissolve, and what's left is raw, holy, and unbearably real. It rarely happens gently. Often, it takes a storm, a betrayal, a loss, a breakdown so deep that it cracks your soul open. In one moment, everything that felt solid turns to dust. The job, the beliefs, the relationships, the version of yourself you spent years perfecting, gone. And in that collapse, a truth emerges. You were never meant to fit into the system. You were meant to remember who built it. The veil lifts and you begin to see, not with your eyes, but with your spirit. You see how the world was woven, how fear was used to control, how love was distorted to bind, how power was disguised as order. It's shocking at first. You realize that what you trusted was built on illusion. Religion becomes mythology, politics becomes theater, even love seems tainted with transaction. It's disorienting, terrifying, liberating. But there's no going back. Once you see the code behind the curtain, the play can no longer deceive you. Your mind tries to fight it. It clings to what's familiar. But the heart has already chosen truth, and that decision cannot be undone. You start hungering for knowledge, not the kind that fills the intellect, but the kind that feeds the soul. You find yourself drawn to what you once dismissed: ancient wisdom, forgotten scriptures, energy work, meditation, astrology, quantum fields. You read late into the night. You listen to voices that would have once made you uncomfortable: mystics, prophets, wanderers. The old self watches in fear as the new self takes its first breath. And yet the awakening is not a straight ascent. It's chaos wearing the mask of revelation. You feel everything: joy and rage, peace and confusion, light and shadow. The same light that expands your awareness also exposes your wounds. You begin to see your patterns, your pain, your illusions, all illuminated under divine fire. The truth doesn't always soothe. Sometimes it scorches. Sometimes it feels like losing your mind. But chosen one, understand this: you are not losing your mind. You are losing your limits. Synchronicities begin to unfold like secret messages. Numbers repeat: 1111, 222, 333. You meet people who feel strangely familiar, as if you've known them before. Dreams carry symbols that later reveal themselves in waking life. You start to feel the invisible threads connecting all things. This is not coincidence. This is the universe speaking in a language you had forgotten how to hear. And as you start listening, the world itself begins to respond. Doors open. Guidance arrives. Revelations appear out of nowhere. But the seeker's stage comes with a warning. In your hunger for truth, the ego can return, disguised as enlightenment. You may start labeling yourself starseed, empath, chosen one, collecting spiritual titles like badges of worth. You may start comparing your awakening to others, believing you are further or purer. But that is just the old ego wearing new robes. The true awakening humbles, not glorifies. It teaches that no title can contain what you are. You are not a label. You are awareness itself becoming aware. The seeker's journey is beautiful madness. You'll cry and laugh in the same hour. You'll crave solitude yet yearn for connection. You'll question everything, even your own sanity. But this is the sacred dismantling, the breakdown of false certainty so that real knowing can rise. The old programming is dying. The heart is being rewired to divine frequency. Every collapse is calibration. Every silence is guidance. You'll start realizing that seeking is not about finding answers, but dissolving the one who demands them. Every ritual, every book, every prayer, all of it leads you inward. Beneath the noise, beneath the searching, something ancient is awakening. A voice not found in temples or texts, but in your own chest. It whispers softly, "Stop looking. You are what you seek." That is the beginning of true awakening, when the search turns inward, when the seeker realizes the path was never outside but within. The light you are chasing is not above you. It's been burning inside you all along. The storm was never here to destroy you. It came to break the shell that kept you small. And soon, when the silence deepens and the light grows unbearable, you will face the next passage, the dark night of the soul. Be prepared, chosen one, for even light casts a shadow, and this is where every soul must walk through its own darkness. The dark night of the soul is not punishment. It is purification. It is the sacred dismantling of everything false, the breaking of every illusion that kept you bound. All the crystals, books, affirmations, and mantras that once gave you strength suddenly feel powerless. The silence grows heavy. The universe feels distant. Prayer returns unanswered. You look around and realize the crowd that once surrounded you has vanished. Even your faith trembles. This is the descent, not into despair, but into truth. The soul removes every layer of illusion, every dependency, every false identity, until only essence remains. It feels like loss, but it is grace in disguise. It feels like the end, but it's the beginning of the real. You're not being abandoned. You're being stripped bare so that nothing artificial can remain between you and God. You may wake in the night with tears you can't explain. You may feel disconnected from everything, even yourself. The things that used to comfort you no longer work. You question your purpose, your path, even your sanity. But this emptiness, chosen one, is sacred. It is not a void, it is a womb. The silence is not absence, it's gestation. You are being remade from the inside out. The ego dies screaming, but the soul rises singing. You begin to see how pain has been the teacher all along. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every unanswered prayer, they were chiseling you into truth. The suffering purified your motives, burned away your pride, and returned you to humility. You realized that you were never meant to perform spirituality. You were meant to become it, to live it in the quiet moments, in traffic, in conversation, in the way you breathe, forgive, and exist. Meditation stops being a ritual and becomes your way of seeing. Gratitude stops being an exercise and becomes your natural response. Compassion flows without thought. This is the stage of integration, the merging of heaven and earth within you. The seeker becomes the embodiment, the mystic becomes the human again, but this time illuminated. You no longer chase signs, you move as one. The divine becomes ordinary, and the ordinary becomes divine. You see the sacred in the mundane, in laughter, in work, in stillness, in rain. You no longer need to escape life to feel holy. You carry holiness wherever you go. There's less need to prove, less desire to explain. You realize that the truth doesn't need defense, it simply is. You stop trying to awaken others, and instead, your peace begins to awaken them. You stop seeking miracles because you've become one. You no longer speak from ego but from experience, not to teach but to share. You understand that healing was never about fixing, it was about remembering. Then, slowly, a deeper stillness rises, unity consciousness, the final level, the end of separation. Here, you no longer see yourself as a fragment of creation, but as creation itself experiencing its own reflection. You see that the tree, the river, the stranger, and the sky are not around you. They are you. There is no more need to dominate, compare, or control. Peace is no longer something you seek, it is what you are. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because there is no longer a they. The illusion of otherness dissolves. Judgment becomes compassion, pain becomes wisdom, conflict becomes understanding. You move through life lightly, knowing that even the storms are sacred, even endings are rebirths. And here lies the greatest paradox of all. Once you reach this stage, you no longer care about stages. The hierarchy disappears. You stop saying, "I'm awakened," because there is no I left to awaken. What remains is stillness, clarity, and oneness. And then, in the most beautiful twist, you return. You re-enter the world, not to escape it, but to serve it. You no longer preach awakening from the mountain. You walk among the people, carrying the mountain within. You see the divine in the eyes of the broken, the lost, the angry, and you love them as yourself. You teach not with words, but with presence. You help others rise, not because you have to, but because love moves you to. This is the true completion. The return of the awakened soul to the dream, not to fall asleep again, but to be a living reminder that all of this, the pain, the beauty, the fear, the longing, is the dance of one consciousness discovering itself. You have remembered who you are. You were never the sleepwalker, never the seeker, never even the name you carry. You were and always will be the light observing the journey through the eyes of a human. You have come home, chosen one, not to a place, but to yourself. This is your rebirth, the dawn of the embodied soul. You carry within you the wisdom of every fall, the radiance of every rising. The world may still spin in chaos, but you move through it as stillness. The noise may roar, but you hear the divine rhythm beneath it all. You understand now. There is never separation, never distance, never me and you. There has only ever been one heartbeat, experiencing itself through countless forms, endlessly remembering its own divinity. And as the awakened, you return not to preach, but to illuminate, not to control, but to uplift. You walk among the sleepwalkers, not with pity, but with compassion, because you once were them, and one day, they too will awaken. Your presence becomes prophecy. Your peace becomes transmission. Your very existence becomes an open gate for others to remember who they are. So go now, chosen one. Step into your world, not as a seeker, but as a vessel. Not as a survivor, but as a messenger. Speak when called, stay silent when led, move with grace, walk with light, for you are no longer searching for the path. You are the path, and when the night returns, as it sometimes will, remember this truth. You are not the storm. You are the calm that commands it. You are not the fire. You are the light that dances within it. You are not the seeker. You are the awakening itself. Welcome home, luminous soul. Your journey has only just begun.